This graph is a great representation of the problem that we just completed. We have our cost equation, which was a linear line. We had our revenue equation, which was also a linear line, and the equilibrium point, the break-even point, we're going to talk about equilibrium in a minute, but the break-even point is the point where those two intersect. So graphically, that's what's happening, where they intersect. So where they intersected was right about at 18,181.81 units, and our sales in dollars would have been between, $20,000 and $25,000 in sales. So now they didn't ask us that. They said, how many units do we need to sell to break even? And what would the sales be? Well, the sales would be between $20,000 and $25,000. So that's how much money we would expect to take in to just break even. Okay, let's check to make sure that you've got this break even thing. How many units must the company in example 6 sell to break even if the selling price is only $1.45 per unit? So $1.45 per unit. Everything else remains the same. Their initial investment was still $10,000, and their cost is still 65 cents per unit. Okay, go ahead and press pause. See if you can figure that out, and I'm going to come back straight with just an answer. How many units must the company sell to break even? Okay, if you did not hear the answer, if you didn't get the answer, press pause, because here is the answer: 12,500 units. So if you were able to get 12,500 units, you should feel comfortable that you've got this concept. Okay, let's talk a little bit about supply and demand. Two types of applications that economists use to analyze a market are supply and demand equations. Supply shows you the relationship between the unit price of a product. That's important, the unit price of a product. So lowercase p is the unit price of a product, and the quantity supplied. And the quantity supplied is X. The graph of a supply equation is called the supply curve. Usually, a supply curve rises because producers of a product want to sell more units if the unit price is higher. A demand equation also looks at the unit price of a product and the quantity demanded, not necessarily supplied. Supplied goes with the supply curve, demand goes with the demand curve. So a company supplies, the public will demand. So the public will demand something. So let's talk about toilet paper. So in 2020, March of 2020, we had a world pandemic. And somewhere along the line, toilet paper became a shortage. The demand for toilet paper went up. There were also some other items. Hand sanitizer. The demand for that went up. The supply from the companies, they couldn't keep up with the supplies. So what happened on the shelves? They were empty. So toilet paper went up. So what happened was companies potentially had the ability to raise the price of toilet paper or raise the price of the hand sanitizer. In fact, consumers purchased a lot of it, and then they tried to capitalize and tried to sell their product for 3, 4, 10 times, in some cases 10 times the price that it normally was. because the demand was so high. So that's how supply and demand work. Now, let me come back here. When we took our two lines here, our equations here, our cost and our revenue, and we found the intersection of our cost and our revenue, we got a break-even point. That was all from the company's perspective. Now we're going to be talking about supply. So we're going to have a line that's supply, and we're going to have a line that's demand. When the supply and the demand curve intersect, we get an equilibrium point. And that equilibrium point, that's what stabilizes, that's what keeps everything in our economy stable. Okay, so that's what we're going to be working on next. We're going to be working on supply and demand. So we're going to come back and we're going to talk about this equilibrium point, the equilibrium quantity, and the equilibrium price.